this is what I'm going to do. And if you're not supporting me, I'm doing it with or without your support.
Do have to be selfish in a way. But I know many moms, you experience guilt when you're stepping away to do something for yourself.
Make yourself a priority and just realize, like, we only get one life. Believe in yourself. Really, if you think about what you want for your life and your family, kid, it makes a big difference. But you just really have to just put one foot in front of the other and just get started.
Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I am your host, Katherine, and today we have one of my friends, Kristen. So Kristen Kotkas is a registered nurse, and she has been balancing work life with motherhood for the past 14 years. Let me tell you a little bit about Kristen before we dive right into it. So Kristen struggled to become pregnant, underwent IVF to conceive their first child, and is now the mother to 3 beautiful little ones. Along the way, she gave up her job as a labor and delivery nurse, and she works now casually as an RN in her hometown alongside her husband and her kids. Kristen really decided to get serious about her own health and fitness journey after her third child was born. Life was a little bit more crazy then, between her husband taking on a new career and them moving to a totally new town where she knew no one. Her passion for health and wellness has led her to want to help others in a different light. She has embarked on doing online coaching specifically for women and moms that are feeling lost in their own journey with health, fitness, and motherhood. Outside of all things motherhood, her number one role in life right now. She loves spending time in the mountains hiking. She enjoys baking and can be found getting a workout in or making a new healthy and high protein dessert, which I hope she shares with us today because I follow her and she's always sharing some awesome like ninja creamy recipes and they look so good. Kristen has a passion for health and wellness and truly understands how important it is to fuel your body well and take care of yourself as well as your marriage so that you can truly thrive and live your best life. So welcome, Kristen, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. And for our listeners, so Kristen is the wife of Joel Kotkas, who is a multi-location owner within the Fit Body Bootcamp brand. And as I mentioned in her intro, Kristen really got into health and fitness and helping other women within the last few years. And so I kind of want to start there. Like, what was your breaking point where you realized, okay, I need to start taking better care of myself? And like, let's just start there.
Yeah, I don't think there was one thing in particular that kind of made me take that venture, take that route, but I think it was over multiple years and so many different things that kind of had like added up. And, just like the stress of having 3 young kids, moving cities and starting kind of like a new life, I guess, even though we moved back to our hometown, it just felt like completely new. Just lots of stressors and lots of like, I don't really know where my life is leading me. Although I always knew that I wanted to embark in like my health and fitness journey. That's when I became a nurse. And so I think what kind of happened was after my third child was born, I was like, this is a lot. And it was actually Joel that kind of convinced me, like, go to Fit Body, like, do a class here and there. And I was like, I can't even do a sit-up, like, after my third baby. Like, I had no core. And I was like, I feel embarrassed. Like, I don't want to go. And he kind of pushed me out the door. And he would encourage me just like, go get your workout in, go get your workout in. And it wasn't actually up until a couple of years ago, our marriage really kind of took a hit. And it was just all this stress. We didn't really take care or nurture our marriage. We were very busy with 3 kids. He had his business. I was trying to, like balance my job as a nurse. It was just a lot. And so I think I really just kind of hit rock bottom, just like knowing like, I can't, hold my marriage together. I can't take care of these 3 kids. I can't be a nurse and take care of myself. Like, I need to do something more for myself. And so I started to really find like going to those Fit Body classes, it was like therapy for me. It was like half an hour of my day I got to myself where I felt like I remember who I am. Like, I know who I am here. And it just really just started to kind of like give me that piece of myself back. And I was like, okay, this like really feels good.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that's the 30 minutes for yourself, because I think that so many women, especially moms, like we just put so much on our plate and we think to ourselves, we cannot possibly make time for another thing. And a lot of people look at exercise like that. Like, I just don't have the time. But I'm guessing that when you did start making the time, everything else that you were dealing with became a little bit easier.
That's exactly right. Yes,
Yeah. And
completely right.
and sometimes, like, you have to just throw yourself in to learn that. Like, you're never gonna know how it's gonna feel and how it's gonna impact your life until you just walk through the doors, whether it's going to a Fit Body Boot Camp, working out on your own, working out at home. I feel like if anybody can just take that little sliver of time for themselves, as you mentioned, away from everyone else, by yourself, then you can feel better in your body, you can show up better, and you can tackle all of the other stuff that you have to deal with.
You're right. It's exactly that. And I think it takes time. Like, we don't just like have these habits in place when we're not used to doing the things. And it took me a long time to be able to like want to do it by myself. Like, it took a lot of my husband, kicking me out the door. And I would have to tell him, like, I have these days that I want to get my workouts in. Please make sure that when I say I don't want to go, like, I'm going. And
Yeah.
I would like beg and plead sometimes. Like, I don't have the energy. Like, I would make up every excuse in the book. And he's like, no, you told me you're going to go for your workout. Get out the door and go. And I always felt better.
Ooh, see, that's great that you have that support system. What would you tell somebody though that's in the other, it's totally opposite. So they want to go to the gym, they want to start making themselves a priority, but they don't have the support from their spouse. What would you tell somebody that could be in that situation? Because I know many of our listeners, that's what they struggle with. And I know this because we'll have somebody new walk into the gym and we'll sit down and have a one-on-one meeting and we'll say like, hey, was there anything holding you back from joining the body boot camp? And they'll say, well, I just need to go home and I need to talk to my spouse and
Yeah.
see if he or she is on board. Well, what if they're not? And then they say, well, I can't do it right now because they're not supporting me in this. What would you tell somebody who so bad wants to take that jump, but they don't have the support?
I think that's challenging. And I think that actually is a big challenge for many people because, um, yeah, if you don't have the support, it makes it really, really hard to be able to do that. And I think you just need to make that decision for yourself. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. And if you're not supporting me, I'm doing it with or without your support. And I think it's just very important to kind of just make yourself a priority and just realize, like, we only get one life. What do you
Right.
want to do with your life? How important is this to you? And just knowing that, like, your emotions, they're not, like, you can't let your emotions drive that. You have to just like put one foot in front of the other, just get to it and just like prove yourself, just show yourself what you can do for yourself.
Right. Yeah, and you do have to be selfish in a way. Many moms, they use the term mom guilt when it comes to taking time to, even some moms have mom guilt around working. Like they love their job and they have to put their kids in daycare. They have to have somebody come to the house and take care of them. And they feel this level of guilt while they're away from their kids. But I know many moms, myself included, you experience guilt when you're stepping away to do something for yourself. And sometimes when it comes to taking better care of yourself so that you can show up for everyone else, you have to be a little selfish. And I know in the gym, we have talked about this when it comes to our nutrition. Like there's many women that they so bad want to start counting macros, which I know you have great experience with as a coach, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But they want to start counting macros, they want to start counting calories, they want to start meal prepping, but they have 3 kids. They have a husband who's just not on that journey. And sometimes we'll tell them, you have to actually do this just for you, and you might have to cook a separate meal for everyone else. But I
Mm-hmm.
can promise you, the more you do that, the easier it's going to be, and you're going to see the results. But in the beginning, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be difficult and it's going to be very inconvenient. And I want to ask you a little bit about when you're coaching other women when it comes to tracking their life, tracking their exercise, tracking their nutrition and their sleep. How do you help them approach that? Like, taking that first step. What's like the first step towards starting to track that you would recommend for someone who wants to just, start today?
Mm-hmm. I would probably suggest hiring a coach that can give a little bit of guidance because there's lots of questions that come. It's something completely that completely new to you, there's a big learning curve, and it is a lot of work initially. But I think first off, I would say if you're going to start tracking, I would probably start tracking your protein. So hitting your protein targets and knowing how much protein your body needs per day. And a coach can help you with that if you don't know. And then also just hitting your overall calories per day, because those two numbers are your driving factors in whatever goal you have for yourself.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think too, like, I know for me in my tracking journey, sometimes I try to track my macros, I'm tracking my exercise, I'm tracking too many things at once. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes if you just start small and start doing one thing at a time, that can definitely help.
Yeah.
Because if you take on too much at once, then it just becomes overwhelming. And that's when a lot of people throw in the towel.
Yes. I think just starting small, like bite-sized pieces, just like whatever you can manage, and just knowing like that life is not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Recently I've heard the kind of like, it's not a switch, it's not off or on, it's like a more like a dial. So either you're a little bit more dialed in and sometimes you're not. It just depends on what life is throwing you, right? Like you can't manage it all. And so just giving yourself grace, just taking it day by day and just doing what you can each and every day, just to kind of be a little bit better than you were in the past.
Yeah, I love that. So, in what ways has like shifting your mindset and your routine and focusing on health and fitness impacted your children's perspective on health and fitness? Because I know that your children are a little bit older now. They're older than my kids. And so they see you working out, they see you meal prepping and making these delicious meals, which I just need you to come over to my house and cook to eat. What do your kids think about it?
They're very involved. I feel like they're always in the kitchen with me, which is good and bad, as you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I can tell that they are thinking about things, especially our oldest, who's 8. And he'll talk about, high protein foods, and he knows, like, before he goes to judo, like I'm always saying, eat something with like a carb that is going to
Right.
digest quickly, that so you have energy. And he understands, and he's always talking about, like, we try to eat organic whenever possible, and he's always kind of looking in the store like, oh, this is organic, and he's very attuned to that. And he works really hard. Like when I see him in his judo practice, he's like the only kid who can do a real burpee, and he includes like a full push up in it. It's insane.
Oh,
And just like, I don't know, sometimes if I do a workout at home, like I always have them just join in voluntarily. Like they're very into it as well. And I think just like what we show and demonstrate our kids, like they just pick up. They're just like little sponges, and they just really soak it all in, and it just becomes part of who they are.
yes, I love that, and I love that he like is fueling his body in those ways and seeing the benefits. And I know that I tell my husband, I talk about this a lot. Like if we instill these healthy habits into our children, they're going to then be leaders in their class, in their school, in their communities that they're a part of, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully help other kids along the way. Because as we know, like not every family is living their life like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, so you and your husband, Joel, you guys decided to give up alcohol not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, I would say.
Yeah, probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 almost. Yeah.
And I respect that decision that you guys made so much. And as I've gotten to know you better and Joel and learn more about your story, I think it's very impactful just for the reasoning why you decided to give it up, but then also the way it's helped strengthen your marriage. Can you share like what the initial thought process was when you were like, okay, let's just give it a break for a little while? Why did you take that step?
For myself personally, I took that step because I was noticing, even, I had a glass of wine or two, and I just was not sleeping well. And when I don't sleep well, I'm just very irritable. I want to eat everything in front of me. I want to reach for the carbs and the heavy fats, like the highly processed foods, foods that just made me feel like comforted.
Right.
And I noticed it really wasn't helping me in my journey with my health and fitness. Like it didn't help me want to get my workouts in. I didn't feel good about myself. And so it was actually pretty easy for me to do that. alongside Joel. Joel gave it up for, I think, probably a little bit different reasons, but it just, honestly, it wasn't serving us as
Yeah.
a couple. It wasn't serving our family. It just really had more negative impact than positive. And so we just gave it a break for a little while. And initially it was challenging because it's such a social thing. Like it's almost like people don't really view it as a drug. They view it as normal part of society. Like you go for dinner, you have a glass of wine. It's very normal. If
Yeah.
you go for dinner, you don't have a glass of wine. It's like, why is she not having a glass of wine? Like it's just not really a thing. And so I think in the last year though, it is becoming more popular. Like I keep seeing non-alcoholic beverages, like all sorts of options. And so that makes it easier for sure. But yeah, there was not really one thing. Like in general, it just wasn't serving us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to touch on that a little bit. Like, I've seen more and more about people being sober curious is what they call it, or having the non-alcoholic beverages, or just cutting back in general. And I've seen so much content around like, you're never going to regret waking up in the morning when you didn't have a drink. Like, you're never going to regret feeling good, but you're going to regret it when you don't feel well. And I know for me, like in this season of life I'm in, and you and I have talked offline a lot about this, like my kids are little and my sleep has not been very great for the last few years. And any alcohol for me, I just can kiss a good night's sleep goodbye. And
Yeah.
that's the worst. Like if you have to get up in the morning and take care of little people or go into work, or even when it comes to like your workout, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to show up as your best self. So it's like you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? But also to your point about it being like just so socially acceptable, there are so many situations for me personally, like when we go out with our friends, it's like, hey, do you want to go to the new wine bar or go to the brewery or even just a restaurant with a glass of wine? And when you say no and you don't partake, then it's like you owe everyone an explanation. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that as it's more normalized, that people will feel less like they have to explain themselves and they can just be their own person and make that decision and not worry about what other people think. And I really commend you guys for sticking to it, because I'm sure you've been in so many social situations where you've been like, okay, well, normally I would say yes to the wine, but tonight I'm just not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a challenge for sure. Like I won't lie, there's been lots of situations where it has felt awkward. But the longer and further you get in your journey, it does become easier, and it just
Yeah.
becomes people kind of learn like, oh, they don't expect it from you anymore, and it's accepted. It does
Yeah.
take time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing about your journey with that. And I know many of our listeners are, curious and they're trying to better themselves when it comes to their health and fitness. And, just a disclaimer, like I still have a drink every once in a while, but I do know now from all the research that's out there, like there is no benefit to it
Mm-hmm.
at all. So the less we all consume, the better we're going to feel.
Yeah. It's like in the moment you
Right.
feel more relaxed, right? But then later on, it's like, what's the outcome, and do you was it
Right.
worth it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you share some of your daily habits and like routines that you have like adopted? Because I know like, you post about how you're in the gym and you do a lot of meal prep. Can you talk a little bit about like what your day looks like and how you stay on track with everything?
Ooh, I'm not perfect all the time by any means.
That's
Um,
okay.
and I don't actually meal prep a ton. What I do is I batch cook. So I cook in large quantities. So if I'm making dinner, like if I'm cooking, I'm gonna cook as much as I can fit in the pan,
Yeah.
because I have a big family, big for these days anyways. And we eat a lot of food, and so yeah, like we eat dinner, and then I try and have leftovers for myself and for Joel, and sometimes even the kids. But yeah, I just make a whole bunch of potatoes, a whole bunch of whatever meat we're eating. I try to have a bunch of veggies just ready so that when I am busy, when I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to eat, I can just throw together a bowl. I know it's going to fuel me. I know it's going to satisfy me. It's going to taste good. And then in my like planner, I plan my workouts like I would any important like doctor's appointment or thing that I needed to go to that I can't miss.
Yeah.
So I do that, and then I'm very fortunate now that all three of my kids are somewhat in school. Our youngest is in preschool in the afternoons, so that gives me a little bit of time when I'm not at the hospital or not busy with my own coaching clients and whatnot, that I can go get my workout in. So that's my time now. I
Yeah.
didn't have that in the past, and so I had to kind of make do. I would usually go after, Joel got home from his workday. I just had to fit it in wherever, but I just know the days that I'm going to get it done, and I try not to make an excuse uh, in the book, so I can just get that out of the way.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your planner. So you and Joel, I learned this when we were at our last, let's see, Fit Body World Conference event when we were eating dinner with you guys. You were talking about how you have like weekly sit downs and meetings with one another. And that's something that my husband Trevor and we try to do every week when we can. Occasionally we'll forget. We actually have it in our Google Calendar every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, like when the kids are down. And occasionally, like, we'll be like, oh man, we missed our Sunday sit down. Like, talk about how important it is that you guys do that and why you do it.
Um, it's it's been like a game changer for a relationship, honestly. It sounds like it's almost nothing, but it makes the biggest difference because during that sit down, we'll go through our own calendars. Like we have our own lives as well, right? Like I have these things that I need to get done or want to get done, and Joel has all these commitments for himself. And when we don't communicate on that, it causes all sorts of tension, and it's just not healthy or good for our relationship. And so that really helps. And then just talking about like, I think it just brings that like emotional connectedness. We kind of discuss like how we're feeling, and it's not even towards necessarily just our marriage, but it's like, how are you feeling in general about like our family life, and what are you
Mm.
excited about, and what's bothering you? And then it just really creates that like, yeah, emotional connectedness where you kind of just like really get the other person, but you also feel heard. And
Yes.
I think it makes a big difference.
I like that you mentioned like the emotional connectedness and like you're asking each other, how are you doing? Because I do feel that many women, and myself included, like I've been through this and you guys I'm sure have as well. You have so much going on and you don't take time to actually ask yourself personally, like, how am I doing? How am I showing up today? How am I feeling? Do I have any emotions that I'm bottling up inside that I need to get out? And your
Mhm.
significant other, a lot of times, they don't even know because you are keeping it you're keeping it inside. And
Mhm.
you have so much that you have to do. You have kids that you have to take care of. You have a job, you have a house. And so it's just like having that set time where you can say, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. And I need you to know this. And how are we going to work this out together? I think a lot of people could practice that and just implement that and see some real benefits.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's been like it's been a game changer. I can't like stress enough how much it's changed our marriage actually. It seems so insignificant, but it's
Right.
been massive. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kristen, what future goals do you have for yourself when it comes to helping moms and women achieve their health and fitness goals?
Uh, I want to help as many women, moms as I can. I think I just want to really reach out and just give them support and guidance because I was that mom who was struggling once. I mean, I still am that mom sometimes, but I just know how good things can be when you really, take the time to work on yourself. And
Yeah.
so I just want to help as many women and moms as I can. Right now, that's through an online coaching platform that I'm delving into. Yeah, that's really my mission.
Awesome. I love it so much. And I love that when you're talking about your routine, it's like you mentioned, it's not perfect and every day is not the same. And I feel that because just today, like I wanted to go to Fit Body so bad this morning and my kids are off school today. It just didn't work out. So I did a quick workout in the basement. They're like running around me, drawing on the whiteboards. I'm like, okay, I've got to get it in for my mental health. It's going to be a better day if I do this. But no 2 days are the same. And some days just really are messy and they're not perfect, but you still continue to show up. And I know that's what you're helping other women do. And I
Mhm.
think that's so important that you share the raw and the real, and that people don't feel like it has to be perfect in order to see results.
You're 100% right. Yeah. Just show up no matter what. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you'd want to leave our audience with? Any parting pieces of wisdom?
That's tricky. I think just believe in yourself. And really, if you think about what you want for your life and for your family, your kids, I think it makes a big difference. But you just really have to just put one foot in front of the other and just get started. And I think once you create the habits for yourself, things just kind of like will flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One foot in front of the other. Well, Kristen, where can people find you on social media and learn more about all the amazing things that you're doing?
I share most of everything on Instagram. Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. We'll change my handle. I think it's Kristen Kristen_Kotkas Kotkas. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was
Yay.
great.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us for another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. As always, make sure to check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, thanks so much.